We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand spanking new edition of Granite State Live. Great to have you along on this Tuesday evening, the 16th day of December 2025. Lest I forget, all of the statements and opinions presented here are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the production team and Right America Media, because we may say some things here that, well, ruffle feathers, but that's okay. Isn't the First Amendment a great thing? I love it. Production team has got the big smiles, plural, on their faces. And they're laughing at me. I love it. I'm your host, Keith Hansen, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, heavily armed as always, never apologizing for my toxic white masculinity. I can't help it, folks. Pre-existing condition. I was born this way. Never apologizing for my Christian faith as well. Our call-in number, if you'd like to be a part of tonight's program, we make that nice and easy for you. 833-603-8255. That is toll-free. 833-603-TALK. And if you'd like to be featured via video, you can do that as well, too. Just send an email to granitestatelive@gmail.com. Put video link in the subject line, and the production team will get that out to you lickety-split. All right, we are not going to waste time this evening because we've got some important things to talk about. First and foremost, of course, everybody familiar with what happened at Brown University over the weekend. And then, I'm not going to say more importantly, but certainly tragically, the terrorist attack that occurred in Bondi Beach in Australia. Now, the Australian government wasting absolutely no time enacting more gun control. And if you are spending any of your time, which you probably shouldn't be, on social media, you're hearing the anti-gun crowd now screaming for gun control. It's all about the guns. It's all about the guns. It's all about the guns. I hate to tell you this, kids, but it's not about the guns. It's about defective human beings in our society. It's about how we, as a society, normalize and, in many instances, celebrate mental illness. We combine that with a healthy dose of pharmaceuticals, and then we create opportunities where we get to sit back, clutch our pearls, and just, oh my God, we virtue signal, shock and awe, and offer thoughts and prayers, because what we look at is the sum total of what we have created. Normalization and celebration of mental disorders and psychotropic drugs. Now, I'm not saying that this particular instance in Australia or in Providence, Rhode Island, was the result of psychotropic medications. It may be. Maybe a combination of those things. Of course, Bondi Beach in Australia, that being a terrorist incident, not necessarily an active shooter incident. Now, what's the difference? Well, we're going to get into that. And we're also going to talk about what law enforcement does here domestically to address these issues. Now, there's the right way to go about this and the wrong way to go about this. But I have to be completely honest with you. When I see the Australian government saying it's a gun issue, it's not a gun issue. And more to the point, here in this country, I don't know if people are aware of this or not, but the whole notion to protect and to serve, great sentiment when it's written on the side of a police cruiser. But it's not the case. There are multiple, and we've talked about this time and time and time again on this show, and I think that's one of the reasons why I think people like me are just exhausted. We're tired of having this endless conversation with brain-dead, vacuous, vapid members of society that think that they have all the answers. Oh, we just got to ban guns. Well, that's exactly what Australia did, folks. That's exactly what they did. This is going back to 1996, as a matter of fact, when a gunman opened fire in Tasmania. It's come to be known as the Port Arthur Massacre. April 28, 1996. We don't mention the name of the gunman on the media, so we're not going to talk about that. But 35 people killed in Tasmania. So what did the Australian government do? They banned pretty much everything. Semi-automatic weapons, gone. With the exception of a hunting rifle, and I'm not talking about semi-automatic AR-15s, and we're talking bolt-action rifles, and in an extremely limited circumstances where people are permitted to have a bolt-action rifle or a shotgun. But your semi-automatic handguns and your semi-automatic rifles, AR-15s, AK-47s, things like that, no, there is no private ownership of any type of weapons system that even resembles that. Because remember, part of the anti-gun argument isn't about what the gun does, it's about what the gun looks like. Because things on guns can be scary. Carolyn McCarthy, going back to the late 80s, early 90s, when she was asked what a barrel shroud was, said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was along the lines of, I think it's a shoulder thing that goes up. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it does, but I don't understand it. So we have to ban it. This is where a concept called Maslow's hammer intersects with another bias called the Einstellung effect, which basically produces the end result. If I don't understand it, it has to be bad or it has to be wrong. In my professional life, outside of media, doing high liability training, I deal with this all the time. Well, that's not how we do it here. Well, why? Because you don't understand it? And so therefore it has to be wrong. It has to be bad. This is a bias that every single person has. Well, I'm not going to say every single person, but I'm going to say people who, by and large, are ignorant. If you understand how biases work, you can at least proactively try to overcome them. I may be dealing with a bias here. Let me take a closer look at this to develop an understanding. Maslow's hammer is a concept that basically the easiest way to understand it is if the only tool that you have is a screwdriver, every problem becomes a screw. And so if it's the only way that I know how to deal with something, then it closes my mind off to alternates or other options. And the Einstellung effect is the simplest way to put it is this is the way that we've always done it. Why change it? It's just tradition-based inertia moving forward, but there's no critical thinking skills. And over time, as more and more and more people engage in these activities that are tradition-based but are purely inertia-driven, well, then we have a closed-minded nature. And that's exactly what these gun control arguments are all about. Now, NPR, and I'm reading from the headline from NPR here, Australia announces strict new gun laws. I don't know how you can virtually eliminate something from your society, but then turn around and continue to regulate and restrict it. But leave it to our friends down under because they're going to try to do that. Australia announces strict new gun laws. Here's how it can act so swiftly. We want to take a guess on how Australia is able to do what they're able to do so quickly? I'll give you 2 guesses, 3 guesses actually, and the first 2 won't count. It's because they don't have a constitution, and they don't have a Second Amendment, which at least in design and ostensibly prohibits the government from infringing upon your right to keep and bear arms. Now, where did these rifles come from that the father-son duo on Bondi Beach used? They were attending tactical training programs outside of Australia. So they traveled outside of Australia to get some kind of training. I don't know what kind of training it was. And then they acquired those firearms, and I guarantee you that it was illegal. So they obtained illegally a device that was already illegal and used those illegally obtained illegal devices to engage in illegal activity. Oh, but it's the gun problem. No. Because we've seen knife attacks. We've seen vehicular attacks. We've seen vehicular-borne and body-borne improvised explosive device attacks. See, here's the bottom line. If people want to kill you, they're going to find a way to do it. There is gun control in jail. There is gun control in prisons. Oh, well, we can't obtain a boom boom to take out somebody that we want to take out, so what do? We beat them to death with our bare hands. Or we use edged weapons. Oh, but edged weapons are contraband. How do we get those? Well, we find things that can be modified illegally into an edged weapon. And then we used that illegally modified contraband to engage in yet another illegal activity. No, but it's the guns! It's not the guns, kids. And if you think for a moment that gun control is going to stop this, that somehow law enforcement is going to be there to help you, then you clearly haven't paid attention to legal precedent. And more to the point, you haven't seen what's happening in other countries. Now, I did not have time to get the video footage over to our production team, but one of the interesting scenes coming out of Bondi Beach were police officers that were hiding. They were hiding. Now, of course, we're talking about Australia. We're not talking about the United States, where every police officer pretty much is equipped with that dreaded, scary AR-15, but they have them. And they have them at the ready. And in some of the more forward-looking states, I don't mean progressive, I mean forward-thinking, forward-looking, we have the right to keep and bear arms. Not every state. I would probably get sentenced to death for what I have in the back of my vehicle on a daily basis. But I can guarantee you that if something were to happen in a location that I happen to be, I have the tools, I have the training. As a matter of fact, more to the point, as an instructor, I have a very, very clear understanding. And I'm not talking about an NRA or USCCA bullshit instructor. I'm talking about law enforcement training. The knowledge and the tools to be able to act swiftly. And that's kind of what we need in this society. Because there's only one thing, and I've said this how many times? One, have I said, what is it that a criminal, a bully, a thug, or a tyrant respects and understands?
Force.
Force. Thank you. You think you're going to walk up to somebody? Well, you just have to be really skilled in de-escalation. I just had this conversation with a group out in Seattle, Washington, of all places, this morning. Most of you don't understand how de-escalation works. This particular organization that I was talking to was looking for the secret words to say at the right time. As if somehow, some way, you have a person who is of a contaminated mindset, be that mental illness, be that drugs, be that alcohol, be that any other factor that would contaminate a person's means of thinking. And that person has homicidal intent. More to the point, that person is armed with a deadly weapon and has aggressive, deadly intent. Come in really, really close because I want to share with you a secret. Do you want to know what the secret words are that you can say at exactly the right time to de-escalate that person? Come on in real close. They don't exist. That's a fallacy. I want to bring you back to your senior prom or maybe your junior prom. Remember that really, really hot girl that you wanted to dance with? And you go up and could I have this dance? And what does she say? No, she's not willing to participate. And that's how de-escalation works. If you think you're going to walk up to a person armed with a rifle or armed with a knife or behind the wheel of a car or who is in possession of an explosive device that has aggressive, deadly intent, and you're going to talk that person off the ledge, you're wrong. And we've seen time and time and time and time and time and time and time again where individuals armed with edged weapons and aggressive, deadly intent over in the United Kingdom are up against 5 or 6 or 7 police officers. And guess what happens? Nothing. Nothing. The cops don't do anything because they don't have the tools necessary to stop the person with the deadly weapon and the aggressive, deadly intent. I don't know what else to tell you. There's only one way that you stop a criminal with a weapon. You reach out and touch them with a device that is capable of doing so. And I'm not talking about a gentle pat on the shoulder. Oh, can we talk about your problems? That's not the time. The time to act, that's too late. There's only one thing you can do. Use force to stop force. All right, we're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, Lieutenant Randy Sutton, law enforcement expert, 30-year law enforcement veteran, having served 10 years in New Jersey and 24 years with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, author of 5 books, Rescuing 911, The Fight for America's Safety. We're going to have a conversation about response tactics, response protocols, and what we do here in the United States when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away. Much more coming up.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Unleashing your humble alpha is the key factor to unlocking profound leadership, unshakable confidence, clarity of purpose, and the quality of life you dream of. As combat veterans and military leaders Stephen Kuhn and Lane Ballone decode how you can master your life, conquer everything that stands in your way, improve your ability to cope with stress, and run toward greatness. You can find Unleash Your Humble Alpha on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
In a nation divided, in a time of shadows and rises a call that echoes through every valley, every church, every heart that still believes in truth. For Christ and Country tells the powerful story of conviction, courage, and unwavering faith in the face of opposition. It is the story of a man who refused to bow. In these pages, you'll witness a modern struggle for truth, a stand not just for one man, but for every American who believes that faith still matters. From author Drew Thomas Allen comes a stirring tribute to courage, sacrifice, and the unshakable hope found in Christ. This is the time. This is the fight. This is the story of a nation worth saving, for Christ and for country.
Look at that. It's so sad.
All right, welcome back to Granite State Live. All right, we've got a small little hiccup here. Randy Sutton was supposed to join us, and we just got a message that unfortunately he had a situation that came up. He is not going to be able to join us on this episode, but we're going to reschedule him. So we're going to take a very, very quick commercial break. Again, sorry about this. Just about 60 seconds so that we can get connected with our next guest. And we're going to talk about Tinder for teens. Yeah, I'm not kidding about this. If you haven't heard about the app Wizz, W-I-Z-Z, well, you're going to get an earful right after this. Don't go away.
You know,
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
in a nation divided, in a time of shadows and rises a call that echoes through every valley, every church, every heart that still believes in truth. For Christ and Country tells the powerful story of conviction, courage, and unwavering faith in the face of opposition. It is the story of a man who refused to bow. In these pages, you'll witness a modern struggle for truth, a stand not just for one man, but for every American who believes that faith still matters. From author Drew Thomas Allen comes a stirring tribute to courage, sacrifice, and the unshakable hope found in Christ. This is the time. This is the fight. This is the story of a nation worth saving, for Christ and for country.
Welcome back to Granite State Live on this Tuesday, the 16th day of December 2025. That was a promotional clip for Wiz, W-I-Z-Z. Now, what's wrong with that, you would say? If I told you that that was a dating app that permitted 13, 14, and 15-year-olds not lying about their age and posing as 18 or 19, but willingly allowing 13-year-olds to create profiles on that. It's a dating app. It's a hookup site. But yet, big tech thinks it's appropriate to sexualize your children, which is what they've gotten very good at. Oh, and when people now push back, oh, well, we put safeguards in place. We make sure that your kids are safe. No, they don't make sure that your kids are safe. They make sure that the kids get what they want because ultimately the big tech gets what they want, which is more of your money. Talk about sick and depraved. Now, I first I had no idea, to be honest with you, because I don't go on social media. I should say very rarely. I mean, and I'm talking maybe like periodically I'll check if I message somebody on Facebook over media things, but I don't scroll feeds. I don't spend hours on TikTok and everything else. I mean, you've heard me say many, many times, TikTok is the congregating place for the stupidest human beings on the planet, and I maintain that position. So when The Hill dropped an article about Wiz, of course, I started to look into it. There's a really interesting article on Futurism.com, company in huge trouble for creating Tinder for kids apps. A startup called Wiz is clearly the latter, referring to startups are trying just about everything. Some of them are wacky, if harmless, like the company who turns your loved one's remains into stones for you to display. They take ashes and turn it into a man-made diamond. All right, whatever. That's pretty cool. Neat startup. But a startup called Wiz is clearly the latter in the darkest sense imaginable, peddling age-appropriate engagement for users as young as 13. Wiz is a French app built on the swiping framework typical of dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge. Tinder, I've heard of. Bumble and Hinge, I have no idea what they are, but dating apps. And of course, now come the pedophiles. Okay. And again, reading from the article, given the massive rise in child predation enabled by social media, that's a huge responsibility, and one Wiz, has fallen way short of. Though it's meant to connect kids with others their age, in reality, it's become a mechanism for predators to meet underage victims. As noted by staffers at the National Center for Exploitation, writing for The Hill, Wiz has been implicated in predictably stunning number of child sexual abuse incidents. Though the app claims to use, quote, sophisticated AR safety algorithms for age verification in order to sort users by age, real-world examples show these safeguards aren't enough to deter child predators. In Hawaii, an 11-year-old girl who had been sexually assaulted by an active-duty U.S. Marine told police they had met on Wiz. Despite the app's ironclad policies, the 19-year-old perpetrator posed as a 15-year-old, which the app's AI safety algorithm failed to catch. Now, The Hill chronicles one of their editors going onto Wiz and creating a profile that allowed them to see and message 13, 14, and 15-year-old kids. And big tech thinks this is okay, right? Because, well, you know, you as a parent, you just have to get with the times. You know, remember the whole intersection of Einstein effect and Maslow's hammer? Well, you know, if it's something you can't understand, then, you know, it's your own fault. This is absolutely, absolutely disgusting where we have come as a society. Bianca Davis is an expert on sex trafficking. She's the chief executive officer of New Friends, New Life, a nonprofit that restores and empowers trafficked and sexually exploited teen girls, women, and their children, and drives awareness of the issues and its prevalence. Bianca, thank you so much for joining us. When you see that video clip, when you see the advertising campaign for Wiz that is ostensibly geared towards the teenage crowd, what's your first thought that comes to mind?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I will say that the images, it's very, very alarming and concerning because we serve women and girls who have been trapped in this life of exploitation and trafficking. And what we know is the online grooming, the online exposure to potential traffickers and predators has increased significantly over the last several years. So this presents as another avenue and opportunity for these master manipulators to infiltrate the minds and environments of children. So it's very scary and concerning when we see yet another open door for the crime of trafficking to potentially occur.
I think one of the things that we need to clarify, Bianca, is exactly what trafficking is, because people think that trafficking is the literal transportation. So if I have a bunch of Asian sex workers in the back of a U-Haul van and I'm moving them from point A to point B, that's sex trafficking. But your child, people who are watching this program right now, they could be sitting at the dinner table tonight, looking across the table at their child who is being actively trafficked, and they may not even realize it. So can you clarify for us exactly what trafficking entails and break some of the misconceptions about what it is and what it is not?
Sure, you're so right. I'll never forget there was a retired police officer out of Pasco County, Florida, who said that the most dangerous place for a child to be is in their bedroom with a cell phone. So, to your point, when we think of trafficking, we conflate that with physical movement. We assume that it's happening to people in foreign countries and it involves you being kidnapped or tied up in a basement. And the federal definition of trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel someone to commit a sexual act. You could have grown up in the same zip code, have never left your community, and still be a victim of this crime as an adult. Now, if you are a minor, you don't even have to prove force, fraud, or coercion. If children are engaging in sexual acts, that is automatically a crime. But I think the biggest myth that we try to debunk is this assumption that we're looking for white vans in a parking lot and it's going to involve a kidnapping, when in reality, especially here in the United States, children, women, men are trafficked by people they know and love. Children are trafficked by their parents who may be selling them for a drug habit. They are trafficked by who they think is a boyfriend or someone who cares about them. And to your point, they're coming home every night and they're in trouble, and parents don't realize that. And that's what makes the internet and the apps such a potentially dangerous gateway, because the online grooming is happening, the sextortion is happening. And to your point, they're at the dinner table the whole time.
And there's many instances where parents are unaware of it. And I keep thinking of the story of James Woods, not the actor, but the 17-year-old boy who his parents had no knowledge that he was in trouble until they went into his bedroom and found him dead. The 17-year-old boy committed suicide because he was being sextorted by people it was either Nigeria or Somalia. The 17-year-old boy goes onto a social media profile, meets who he thinks is an attractive 15 or 16-year-old girl. She starts sending him explicit photographs, and as any normal, healthy, testosterone-driven 17-year-old boy would do, he becomes excited. He decides he's going to fulfill the request. Hey, you know what? I sent you a couple of pictures. Why don't you send me a couple of pictures? He sends some sexually explicit photographs over to who he believes is a 15 or 16-year-old girl. Now, I mean, of course, two minors, whatever, be that as it may. Not saying that it's right, but you could see how that would be a normal course of action for a teenage boy. Well, come to find out, these photographs that he sends are not to a teenage girl. They're to a group of extortionists over in Africa. And then over the course of 19 hours, he receives several hundred messages. You have to pay us money. It was like $1,000. Pay us $1,000. Otherwise, we're going to send these pictures to everybody. And this kid, not knowing what to do, who to turn to, ended his life. And this took 19 hours.
Yes.
And that's one person.
It's,
So it may not necessarily be the, I think, Chris Hansen and to Catch a Predator and a couple of the spinoffs, you have a lot of these people that think that child predation involves a person meeting a minor, specifically in a physical context, that will culminate in an illegal sexual assault. But the sextortion thing, I think, is also a major issue here that doesn't get the attention that I think it should.
Yes, yes. And so the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they also run a cyber tip line. And I just took a look at that. In 2024, there were 546,000 calls into the tip line reporting online enticement and sexploitation. And so that's 500,000 calls, which was a 192% increase in the year before. And so we are still having the same very dangerous and sometimes deadly results of this crime in the form of sextortion and online exploitation, as we would if there were a physical instance of trafficking in person, and maybe even more so because you don't have the restrictions of distance. You immediately take out the distance, the protection of time and location when you're able to do it online. So it's definitely concerning to see it potentially being normalized through apps like these that make the opportunities easier to hook up and connect virtually. And it can potentially cost our children their lives. So it's alarming and concerning, and it makes the fight against the crime of trafficking that much harder.
So, I mean, what would you suggest to parents? My personal suggestion would be get your kids, first of all, you're 13, 14 years old, you don't need a cell phone. I have two stepchildren, 9 and 13 years of age. Even the 13-year-old wants a cell phone. Not going to happen. You are not going to get a cell phone, period. It's not going to happen. Why? It's not that I don't trust you. It's that I don't trust your ability at 13 years of age to be able to make good decisions just because of experience and the fact that you have some very psychologically shrewd predators out there. Roblox, perfect example. You hear kids playing Roblox, and Roblox, you have child predators on Roblox. They're facing multiple lawsuits because child predators are offering, in exchange for basically valueless game tokens that are only valuable within that ecosystem. Hey, if we'll send you game tokens if you send us naked pictures of yourself. Go get mom or dad's cell phone and send naked pictures of yourself. And this is to 9 and 10-year-old kids. So how can a parent stay vigilant?
Yes, and so with the way that the internet and social media is so integrated into our society, I mean, even in schools, there are teachers that are putting assignments online, right? And so children are almost forced to interact with the internet. But what we tell parents all the time at New Friends to Life, there are two main things that we encourage parents to do to help keep their children safe. And the first is to make sure that your child knows that there's absolutely nothing that they can do that would make you turn your back on them, because the trafficker, the predator, is banking on that fact. He's banking on the fact that if your child has sent the photos or engaged in conversations, he can threaten the child and say, if you don't do the next thing, I'm sending these photos to your pastor, to your principal, to your parents. They're never going to accept you. And in their underdeveloped brain, our frontal lobe isn't developed until the age of 25. So you're absolutely right. A 13-year-old isn't capable of making the best decisions in every situation. So that child is thinking, I've done the absolute worst thing and I might as well keep going because I have no way out. So we tell parents to keep that line of communication open so that your child knows that if they run away, if they are engaged in something, if they fall down this path, that it doesn't mean that it's the end, because that's one of the biggest weapons as a parent that you can have to keep your child safe, to break the hold, the mental hold, the psychological hold that the trafficker tries to put on that child. And the second tip is you have to find ways to engage. You have to know that behind some of these apps, many of them are a facade to communications and interactions that you may not think are happening. And you have to engage and monitor as much as possible what those conversations are like. I'll never forget around the time of maybe in 2020, not shortly after the pandemic, the shutdown had started, there was a a middle school principal in New York State, a middle school history teacher in New York State who was grooming a 14-year-old girl in Tampa, Florida. He had had an online relationship with her. He flew to Florida, convinced her to leave her parents' house, and he sexually assaulted her. Thankfully, she did go back home and tell her parents, but they had absolutely no idea. They thought that their baby girl was safe. And so you have people that are pretending to be good guys and they have the worst intentions and they're hiding behind these apps. So parents have to find ways to engage and have those conversations with their kids. It looks like a calculator app, but it's a chat that disappears within 24 hours. Or it's like this Wiz app. It's under the guise of just general conversation, but it can be a predatorial site for traffickers to manipulate our children. So engagement and open lines of communication.
I think the open lines of communication and establishing from the earliest years that sense of trust. You can come to us with anything. Reading from an article about James's situation, quote, James's predators falsely told him he would face jail time for sending nude photographs, that his parents would stop loving him, and that he would never be able to run track again or go to college. In the next 19 hours, they would send James more than 200 messages, a technique predators use to instill a sense of urgency and prevent giving the victim time to think or reach out for help. And I think that's absolutely critical. That's where, and this is the end of the world. Oh my God, mom and dad are going to find out that I sent, nude pictures to somebody. I'm going to get grounded for a week. I remember back in the late 80s when I was in high school. And you had MAD, both MAD and SAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving and Students Against Drunk Driving. There was a contract, and maybe it's time to reestablish something like this. The contract that if I ever find myself in a situation where I'm trying to make a decision, I've been at a party, I've been drinking, I don't want to call home because I know I'm going to get in trouble. The contract between the parents and the child was, if you ever are in a situation where you're unsafe, call us. You're not going to be in trouble. We'll have a conversation about it later, but we will come and get you. And it was that contract for life that MAD put out. Maybe it's time to do the exact same thing here, where if you ever find a situation where you are being pressured to do something that you know in your gut is wrong, that you will come to us. We will not judge you. You will not be in trouble. We will be there to help you. Or find another trusted adult. Find a guidance counselor or a teacher or a police officer or a pastor or a priest or a trusted adult that you can go to, because ultimately this is wrong and we want you to be safe.
Yeah, and I think it starts with parents and adults understanding the true implications and the true definitions as well, so that we're not lulled into this sense of safety. We're not assuming that because I live in a great neighborhood and that it's a two-parent household, my child has everything they need, that they're fine. So I think starting with the understanding of the adults of just how critical of an issue this is. Human trafficking is a global crisis. It's the second largest and fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world behind the drug trade. And in the United States, here in Texas, we rank second in the nation for highest number of trafficking victims. So it's definitely something that's at critical mass, and we need to do everything that we can as a community to protect our children and fellow citizens and residents.
The Australia just passed a ban, basically. I'm not going to say basically, it is. It's a social media ban for anybody under the age of 16. Now, I am not a big government, we need more laws kind of thing, but I have to question, I'm going to be frank here, I have to question the intelligence of a parent who gives a child a portal or a gateway into a world that they know is chock full of predators, chock full of criminals, yet they give their children this device and say, okay, there you go. this becomes the electronic babysitter. I mean, it used to be, you'd hear the parents, oh, you put your kid in front of a television set. The television set is the electronic babysitter. But at least you knew Saturday morning cartoons weren't going to encourage my child to send nude pictures to an unknown person halfway around the world, or in some cases, down the street. So what do? We don't want more government, more regulation, more. But how can we get, I mean, we talk about the education aspect. We have to give parents definitions. I think we need to do something more than just give parents definitions. I think there needs to be some type of action. Again, I don't want to go as far as to say we have to ban it, but I think that there has to be, I don't know, maybe criminal charges. Maybe there has to be facilitation charges against big tech, because big tech is absolutely facilitating this. And the fact that they get to walk away and say, well, we don't have any responsibility here, I think that's utter nonsense. It's utter garbage. There is, I don't know if ostensible agency would be the appropriate term here, but there is agency in that crime. You facilitated it. It was your platform, and you did not take the necessary steps to ensure that a minor didn't have access to this. When you're openly advertising and encouraging minors to engage in this, I think there has to be criminal actions at that point.
Yes, and it's so complicated. I think of, for example, local strip clubs, right? So strip clubs are seen as legitimate businesses; they can operate. We also know that within these businesses, criminal activity, the crime of sex trafficking, is rampant, right? Where there's force, fraud, or coercion, but it's hidden behind a legal operation. And it's so hard to separate and really peel back the layers of what is legal, what is your right, what are you allowed to do, and then what becomes a crime. And so I think if we could answer that question, we could potentially save a lot of lives. That is really what we're up against. We're also up against social norms. It's seen as a rite of passage for men to go to a strip club for a bachelor party. And men aren't connecting the dots between that behavior or that activity and potential criminal behavior that's happening behind the scenes. So we're also up against what's okay as a culture. There are parents that will post every stage of their child's life on the internet, on Facebook. Here is them at their first day of school. Here's the name of the school. We're going on a trip out of town. Here's our boarding pass, right? So we are feeding the internet all of this information, all of this content, and then people take advantage of it, and it's hard to find the line of, wait, what did we do to contribute or to make this possible? So it's very, very complicated and complex. The same internet that we have so much trouble with is the same internet that allows us to get the information out and to share and to educate. And so I wish we had a simple answer for that, but it is really at the heart of how this crime has been able to explode in its prevalence, is the access that's happening online. It's really been devastating to the fight.
I absolutely agree, and I think that this is a topic that deserves a lot more than 25 minutes, to be honest with you. I would very, very much like to get you back on a future episode to have an expanded dialogue about this. And again, I would encourage your organization. I mean, hell, we'll do it here. That contract between parents and kids, I think it's something that needs to be resurrected. Matt had a great idea when it came to drunk driving. Yeah. I think we definitely need something in this day and age when it comes to internet-based apps and social media. Kids need to know what's right, what's wrong, and if they feel like something is off. We talked about stranger danger so often. We have to apply that definitely to the faceless strangers, or even those that are posing as friends on social media. Bianca, I want to thank you so much for your time tonight. Bianca Davis, you can read more about New Friends, New Life at newfriendsnewlife.org. That's newfriendsnewlife.org. Thank you again for your time. God bless, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, we are going to take a very, very quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to check in with Salvador Litvik. He's the author of Let My People Laugh, the greatest Jewish jokes of all time. But we're not going to be telling jokes. We're actually going to be having a conversation about an uptick in violence against members of the Jewish faith. That and more when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Time to feel it. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
I got to be honest with you. I really do like that webcam. That's one of the coolest webcams that you've put up there, because that's the one where we always get the forest critters that are out there. We've had raccoons and cute little fluffy bunny rabbits and deer and everything else. So kind of cool. Where is that exactly? I can't read that on the monitor. Where is that?
Michigan. It's in Michigan.
It's in Michigan. Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of cool. No, that's definitely wild. All right, welcome back to a Granite State Live edition. I can't believe this is already the 16th of December. This is crazy. 9 days until Christmas. Hope you got your Christmas shopping done, kids. I haven't even started. No, crazy. All right, we opened up the program talking about the active shooter attack, terrorist incident, active shooter. We were going to have Lieutenant Randy Sutton on, and unfortunately, due to a last-minute situation that arose, Randy's not going to be able to join us on this program. We are going to get him onto a future program as well. And just a reminder, next week, being Christmas, we will not be doing a live. We'll do a best of next week, and then we'll be back on Tuesday, the 30th, in kind of a 2025 in review, which is kind of amazing, thinking that we're already at the end of 2025. Crazy, but true. All right, so the death toll now in Australia, I think it's 15 as of right now. And of course, this was a Hanukkah celebration. Two Muslim terrorists armed with, I don't know how they get guns in a country that ostensibly has banned pretty much everything that goes bang, but that's exactly what they did. And we're starting to see, I shouldn't say starting, because this has been going on for a while now. We're starting to see an uptick in acts of anti-Semitic violence. In this country and certainly beyond. Where does this end? Where is this all going? Because we've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. So to have a less than candid conversation about this, Salvador Litvik, author of Let My People Laugh, the greatest Jewish jokes of all time. I kind of say that with a smile, but we're not here to tell jokes. We're here to have a serious conversation. Maybe we'll pepper a couple in there. But I'm going to let you do that. God forbid I get accused of being an anti-Semite, which has happened before. Because being a conservative, I must hate everybody. But no, absolutely not. Welcome to the program, Sal. Appreciate your being here.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me. Listen, this is, like you said, it's a movie we've seen before. It's the oldest hate that there is. And I'm actually wearing my different hat today. I did write the book, Let My People Laugh. I'm also a movie director in my movie Guns and Moses. is available now for people to watch at home. It's a big screen thriller with Christopher Lloyd, Dermot Mulroney, Neil McDonough, and Mark Feuerstein about Jews under attack who fight back. So this rise in the threat level to the Jews, and I'm an Orthodox Jew, a religious Jew. I wear a kippah. When I go to synagogue on Saturday, I'm wearing a black suit and a black hat, all of which is to say I'm a visible Jew. And in our visibly Jewish community, we've been aware for some time that it's not just talk, and that when your enemies say they want you dead, we believe them, and we take precautions and we take it seriously. And, religious Jews tend to be quite politically conservative, and many of us carry. And we feel that we need to, and we do the training that goes along with that. Australia is a place that has not stood up for its Jewish community at all. There's been calls for this globalized intifada, justifying acts of violence against any Jew that moves. The Jewish, I know quite a few Jews in Australia, and they have felt, the rising threat level and the government doing nothing to help them, to protect them. So this danger is real. It's something that we have to take seriously. It is not getting better. It's only going in the wrong direction. And I assume when you were talking about the active shooter, you're talking about what happened at Brown, over the weekend. And, that information seems to be trickling out very slowly. And I don't know if it's true or not, but the latest reports that I'm seeing on X makes it very possible that was another, pro-Palestinian or actual Palestinian who shouted Allahu Akbar, etc., before the shooting. It's bad, man.
Yeah,
it's bad. It's bad and going the wrong way.
Unfortunately, we have a society that is propping these people up psychologically. We've spent many, many hours on my media talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Love it. Absolutely love, because it maps out exactly what you're seeing. When you look at the highest rungs of Maslow, being the self-actualization, being all that you can be. Interestingly enough, Maslow was an atheist. So when he went to the Blackfoot Nation tribes and was studying organizational psychology, and he used the Blackfoot, they were looking at basically being everything that you possibly could be, maximizing what the creator put you on this earth for. Being an atheist, he couldn't mention creator, so it's being all that you can be, reaching your full potential. And so when you have people who are, we just talked about social media and the evils of social media. You have people who are trying desperately to be somebody. They want to self-actualize. They want to influence other people. Gotta hate that name, that term, influencer. But they go out and they do these things, and they find fans. They get propped up by people of a similar mindset who are saying, God, you're doing a great job, and you're a warrior, and you're this, that, and you're the other thing. And so it pushes people, I believe, to take the next step. And this is, again, oftentimes we're dealing with people who are, and we talked about this earlier in the program, we're talking about people who are oftentimes mentally defective, which we celebrate and glorify and elevate in this country. And then we combine that with psychotropic drugs and everything. Oh, you can be what you want to be, and if you can be a furry and blah, blah, blah. So we celebrate mental disorders. And we don't hold people accountable. And I think that's really the third prong, is we don't hold people accountable. What are the universities? You're in New York City, correct?
No, I'm in LA.
Oh, you're in LA. Okay, so in New York City,
you're
little
seeing... better. Only a little better.
Well, how's the weather out there in Newsom land? But you're seeing college campuses in New York City that are openly hostile to anybody that wears a Star of David or that has a perceived to be a Jewish last name. Where is the accountability here? And where is the basic concept of legal and illegal, and also right and wrong? Because clearly it's illegal, but it's also outright wrong. But we don't hold people accountable.
No, and why would they hold anyone accountable when the wisdom, the so-called wisdom that they're receiving from their professors in these academic institutions is 100% propping up these viewpoints? This worldwide jihadist movement, it's incredibly successful, right? You can say that what they're good at it, right? This is an evil that is spreading, and they're good at it. And they've been so incredibly effective at rigging their system in our country, where if you and I have this conversation and say that they are creating a danger, they are going after Jews. It's not just Jews, right? When they come after the Saturday people, the Sunday people are next. There's definitely been attacks on Christians. And if we talk about it, we are racist, right? We are Islamophobic. I love everyone who's been saying lately, a phobia is irrational. Fear of people that say out loud over and over and over and over again that they want to globalize the Intifada, that they want to impose Sharia law, that they want to, bring the problems that they're allegedly running away from their countries and recreate them wholesale here. Fear of that is rational. That's not a phobia. And I think that's something that really sets the stage for all of this among young people. It's tragic. It's that difference between vertical and horizontal learning. Vertical learning is the way that wisdom has been passed from generation to generation since the beginning of time. I mean, where are you going to learn hard-won wisdom? From your own experiences and mistakes. And hopefully you can also learn from the mistakes of your elders, right? They went through it. And so traditionally, right, a grandparent would pass on to a grandchild, hey, I learned this, this works, this doesn't, this is a good idea, that's not, look at the mistakes I made. And you get wisdom vertically from the generations before you that have, learned through hard-won experience. These days, young people don't do that. They look horizontally in their social media, and what everyone their age in their echo chamber agrees on, that's wisdom. And you could go so far askew, so far awry when you are seeking wisdom from the people in your own group, and especially in your own echo chamber, who just back each other up. And like you say, so these people come up with, just reprehensible views about violence and how to scapegoat their problems on a group that's always been scapegoated. And the next thing you know is violent attacks on the Jews. And like I said, it won't stop with the Jews. It never does.
So the online publication ChristianPost.com, and not necessarily towards the Jewish population, but to the Christian population, more to what you spoke about earlier. Quote, a religious freedom advocate is warning of a potential for another Christmas massacre in Nigeria as Christians in the country continue to experience targeted attacks on an unprecedented level. This is something that we see year after year. Of course, Hanukkah, in such a close time proximity to Christmas, that you're seeing the Islamists that are targeting both Christians and Jews as well. Yep. And it doesn't seem like we take this seriously. Emboldened by, Mayor-elect Mamdani's win, you're starting to see a lot more Islamic candidates that are announcing candidacy for local positions as well as state and even federal seats. So that creates, I think, a very alarming situation. And Robert Spencer from Jihadi Watch has been a great personal friend of mine. He's been a frequent guest on my media. And we've had extensive conversations about the dangers of radical Islam, both to the Christian population and to the Jewish population. And
the American population.
It is
yes.
Well, absolutely, because they are pushing for Sharia law. This represents an existential threat, but it's so much easier to turn around and take the woke position. Oh, you're a racist and you're an Islamophobe. No, I'm a pragmatist. The glass is neither half full nor half empty. There's water in the glass. And if there's something that's poisonous in that glass, I think we owe it to ourselves as a religious organization, as a religious sect, both Christians and Jews. And we also owe it to ourselves as a nation and as a society to take a pragmatic look at what we're dealing with and say there is an existential threat to everything that makes America great.
If your enemy tells you he wants you dead, believe him. Believe him. Look at what's happening in the United Kingdom. City after city after city is fallen. You got the no-go zones in London. It's happening in Paris, of course. Germany, not quite as bad yet, because, with their history, they've got so many laws in place to protect what Jews live there. And so the Islamists haven't got quite the foothold in Germany, but they're getting it. They're getting it. It's gaining. The Scandinavian countries. I mean, it's not safe for a woman to walk around in those Scandinavian capitals in many parts of those cities. And this guy, Mamdani, I mean, this is an actor cast for a role. This guy has no experience. He's just like a handsome face and a smile, and he's saying all the right things that young people want to hear: free buses, low rent, forgiving student debt, etc. All the promises the communists have always made in order to get into office, which they, by definition, can't keep. There's not enough money in the world for that. But then they start consolidating their power and putting into place their policies. You look back at the Iranian Revolution, 1979. The Ayatollahs worked with the useful idiots in the universities who thought that they were bringing in a socialist revolution, perhaps even a communist revolution. But as soon as they seized power, and the young people said, okay, we're going to share power now, right? We're going to make this workers' paradise. And the Ayatollahs just killed their leaders, shut up the rest of them, and there was no more socialist revolution, no more socialist movement, no more opposition of any kind to the rulers who created the number one state sponsor of terror around the world. That's how it works.
So Nigel Farage, perfect example. Nigel Farage taking a very Trumpian approach to running for prime minister. But what's interesting here is that he's gaining a lot of traction. And one of the things that Farage has said is that upon his successful win and appointment to prime minister, that a Trump-esque deportation of Muslims from the United Kingdom, that's going to be priority numero uno for him. Do you think Farage stands a chance here?
This is the country that voted for Brexit. Right, so things are possible in England, and if you look at Tommy Robinson and what he's put together, that coalition, the demonstrations. I mean, I think there's a lot of British people who are sick of it. Right, they're absolutely sick of it. I don't think they care so much about the Jews. You know, it's funny. It used to be a saying in England that what is anti-Semitism? Right, it's hating the Jews more than is absolutely necessary. I mean, it's not a great Jewish-loving people, the British, although there have been wonderful Jewish communities in England for a long time. But the alternative, right, and the presentation of yes, there are moderate Muslims. There are many moderate Muslims, but the people who are taking over city by city in the UK, they're not moderate Muslims, and they're not looking to just live side by side. They're looking for a takeover. They say so. And so when now you've got British people, singing as an anthem, like a soccer anthem, you can stick your Palestine up your hole. You're talking about a serious uprising from the people against this kind of Sharia law takeover. And so I think that Farage has a good chance.
I want to bring it home here because one of the things that we've talked about extensively on this program is the Judaic principle of tikkun olam. Now, I'm going to do my best to kind of explain this, but basically it is a Judaic principle that is do your best to leave the world a better place than what you found it. Is that a fair summary?
Of that principle, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So, and one of the things that I've asked many people is why is it that the Jewish populations in larger metropolitan areas like New York continues to vote for people like Mamdani, and what is the reliance upon the principle of tikkun olam to influence people to do things that, from the outside looking in, kind of leaves you scratching your head going, what the hell were you thinking?
The reason why I said that's a good summary of that principle, a little bit circumspect, is because that principle has been abused. It has been used in a way that it was never intended. It's not, first of all, it's not the centerpiece of Judaism. It's not the centerpiece of a Jew's obligations in this world. Right? What are we commanded to do? Number one, we're commanded to love God, to love his creatures, to a tikkun olam, a repair of the world starts with a repair in yourself. And you have to, you talked about a little bit earlier in the words of this gentleman you mentioned who was an atheist, right? And realizing your mission, realizing your purpose. That actually squares much more with Torah, right? With Scripture. What is the first commandment? People always get this wrong. If you ask them, what is the first commandment in the Bible? They'll usually think that you mean something like the first of the 10 commandments, which is, I am the Lord your God. That's not the first commandment. The first commandment is be fruitful, right? It's tied to be fruitful and multiply. And so it's usually interpreted to mean that you should have children, that you should populate the world, you should have a next generation to bequeath this world to. But if that's what it meant, it would suffice to say multiply. Be fruitful means that each of us has a mission in this world. We have to keep asking, what is my mission? What is the problem that won't be fixed unless I fix it? What is the contribution that won't be made unless I contribute? What is the project that won't be realized, the work that won't be done, the person that won't be helped unless I do it? But a Jew is also obligated in many other commandments. And Tikkun Olam Judaism, which is what you're alluding to, is not Judaism. Right? This is not a popular viewpoint. And where this comes from is that Jews have obligations. You didn't sign a dotted line, but if you're a Jew, you're born in and you're obligated in these commandments. Religious Jews, really live their lives by this code. Tikkun Olam is this shallow substitute for the many obligations that we have, which include tithing and giving to charity and educating ourselves and our children and contributing. So there are contributions to be made, but it is within a Torah context.
So, and as you're describing this, and I'm hearing a parallel. It's to me when you have leftist progressive politicians that use the general welfare clause of the Constitution to conform to whatever leftist progressive, wish that they happen to have. Well, it falls under the general welfare clause, so it has to, And I was raised, in a Judeo-Christian household, where I remember my dad telling me regularly, the devil can quote scripture to suit his own purpose. And so it seems like the way that you're explaining Tikkun Olam, the concept of this, it really is. It's a bastardization of a core principle that has taken a life of its own by virtue of the fact that people have found a convenient narrative to push agendas that may not necessarily be wholesome or practical.
Or square with our Judeo-Christian principles. That's exactly right. And the simplest form of that, for people who don't use the term Tikkun Olam, is I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I don't need to learn all this stuff because I'm a good person. How do you define good person? I know. And really where all that goes is moral relativism, right? I mean, they will just find whatever argument to suit the cause du jour, whatever's going on lately. And the leftists, what they've done is they've reduced everything to, what are your immutable characteristics? How high up on the victim hierarchy are you? And if they can make a credible argument that they're helping someone, climb the identity ladder, then they're doing something good. The world is just not that way. We all have responsibilities, and we have to, if we're going to judge what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, we have to be students of history, and we have to be students of eternal values, the unchanging values, right? And America was very much based on those principles and has always been a meritocracy. And in these last 30 years, I think you've just seen the diluting of the whole concept of merit so far, and especially in the academy, where you've got so many incompetent people teaching the next generation. And again, in the absence of wisdom from their teachers and parents, who won't step in, they look to each other, and then they can get just so far off the rails.
So we just got a couple of minutes left here. So I just want to bring it back to the initial topic that we were speaking about. For people that are, we always call them Sunday Christians, the people that, or holiday Christians, they show up to church Easter and Christmas. Whether somebody is Orthodox or whether somebody is kind of a non-practicing Jew, what would you recommend in terms of vigilance and preparation in today's day, because I think it's a dangerous world. It's a dangerous world for anybody, but when you are part of a group that is being specifically targeted, and more to the point, there are no efforts to really rein in the aggressive nature of the group that's targeting you, how can you adequately protect yourself and your family and your interests in today's age?
I really thank you for that question. So number one, get your head out of the sand. It's real. It's not paranoid to say that these are dangerous times we're living in. I am the son and grandson of Holocaust survivors who said, don't think it can't happen in America. And I didn't believe them. I knew they were right intellectually, theoretically, but I couldn't see how a nation like ours, this kind of danger could exist. And now we're seeing it rise. So what are we going to do about it? Number one, situational awareness. Do not walk down the street with your nose in a phone. How many people are doing that, especially young people? You've got to be aware of what's going on around you. Number two, and this is not for everybody. Not everybody should or could have a gun. But if you're the type of person that is responsible, that sees yourself as a potential guardian of your community, then get armed. Thank God we live in a country with the Second Amendment. Take advantage of it. Now, I talk to people about this a lot, and you actually see the firearms training in our movie Guns and Moses, where a rabbi has to learn to defend his community. And unlike most Hollywood movies, when a person needs to learn how to shoot, puts 5 tin cans on a fence, and 20 seconds later he's a dead shot, it's very difficult to shoot safely and accurately under pressure. It takes a lot of training. So if a person buys a gun to defend his family, his community, puts it in a drawer, and thinks that he's done something, he hasn't, right? You need to train with it over and over and over. You need to get instruction from experienced professionals, not just in a little booth at the range where you pick it off a table, shoot and put it back down. You need to be able to draw from a holster while you're moving in the dark. Targets are moving, there's noise, all these kinds of things. And it's not easy to get that kind of training. You have to seek it out. I said, that's not for everybody, but if it's for you, do it, and take it seriously and support organizations that take our security seriously.
Absolutely. So before we sign off here, you are the author of Let My People Laugh, the greatest Jewish jokes of all time. I have one, but I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours first.
Okay. We have a couple minutes.
Go ahead.
This is one of my favorite. Fella has always wanted to meet Neil Armstrong, and he finally gets his chance. The astronaut, he says, Mr. Armstrong, when you walked on the moon, the first person, you uttered those famous words, one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Was that planned or spontaneous? And Neil Armstrong says, I'm going to tell you the truth. That's not what I said. I said one small step for man, one giant leap for Manny Klein. Manny Klein? Who the heck is Manny Klein? When Mrs. Armstrong and I were just starting out, we were very poor. We lived in an old building with thin walls, and we could hear everything going on. Mr. and Mrs. Manny Klein, including Manny's nightly request for something special in the bedroom, to which Mrs. Klein would always reply, Manny, you'll get that when a man walks on the moon.